And we're live. Welcome everybody here to your favorite day of the week. I'm Anthony Irwin, turning on my light. Joined by Pete Zayas. This is The Hook. Pete, how you holding up?
Doing well. It's been a long offseason, and we're finally here on a game night, man. So I'm super excited to have a couple games this weekend, and then another week off, which will be torture, but we'll get
it.
there.
It actually like works out well for the Lakers. Not so well for us because it's, again, it's kind of like Eurobasket where it was like a taste of it, and we're like, but like for the Lakers as a squad,
I totally agree.
Given their injuries and stuff, you get to dip your toe in the water, get back out, focus on practice for a week, jump back in. Today on the show, we're going to be talking about Rui being the likely starter. I reported earlier in the week, and our reaction to that. I haven't spoken to anybody about it since, so I've just been basically talking into the void about it in the comment section, which it's good for the sake of the show, and I enjoy talking to people, but also I like talking to human beings and seeing their faces as well. So we're going to talk about that as a possibility. I think we both kind of disagree with it, so we'll explain why, then also take that next step and explain how it could work if this is indeed the path that the Lakers are taking forward. And then with Marcus Smart potentially not starting and with him already dinged up, does that reshape the offseason that the Lakers had? Would we have to regrade it in looking back and then looking ahead to what they need? I actually think if the Lakers aren't going to start Marcus, then I think they should probably trade for the actual starter that I think they still need. So we'll have that discussion. And then finally, as there is a game tonight, we are going to preview it. Like, I'm really excited, Pete. I don't normally get too juiced for preseason games or whatever, especially with the Dodgers in the postseason and the stressful existence that is. But no, I'm like really looking ahead to this one, and just to see it, like all of the things that the Lakers have talked about. I think we actually can learn quite a bit from this game and these games, even with LeBron in and out of them, and Marcus maybe not playing in the first couple or whatever. So yeah, I'm pumped. Let's go ahead and dive on in. A reminder before we do, please hit that subscribe button, please hit that like button, all of the good buttons. And then if you guys are listening to this in its podcast form, please subscribe to the pod wherever you get your podcast, preferably on Odyssey, because we are company men. All right. Let's start with the Rui thing. So essentially, as it has been basically framed to me, Pete, as much as I think we would have liked for Rui for Marcus to have been kind of the gotten the inside track here, it appears to be the inverse of that Rui always had kind of the upper hand on Smart in terms of likelihood of starting, and then Smart got hurt, and is not able to participate in the first week or so of training camp, which now makes Rui I would call it far favorite, distant favorite, to start on opening night. What do you think of that decision? Where do you stand on that, or at least even the process of it? Where are you at here?
I disagree with it. I understand the rationale behind it. It's, and there are a lot of times in basketball where you got to choose between one thing or another, and you always have to think about both options. And very rarely are you 100-0 on those decisions. This is like a 70-30 for me, where I feel strong enough to stand on it and be like, this is why. And my main rationale is that I think that if you don't have a guy whose main job is guarding the perimeter. You take a whole bunch of different defensive coverages off the table. You can't really put pressure on the ball. We also heard Redick last week at Media Day say that it's really against his beliefs to put 2 on the ball. So how are you going to put pressure on the SGAs, the Ants, the really top end guys? You can't just let them do whatever they want. They have to be able to feel you, right? And so peel off switching and scheming and, trying to trap them into, it's going to work to a degree. You have to be good at it, but you also have to be able to pressure them with actual players. And so I don't believe a starting lineup where you could argue that 41-year-old or about to be 41-year-old LeBron James at his peak is the best defender in the starting lineup. Is that a contending team? I don't think so. And so it's just a matter of, I don't think the Lakers are lacking the ingredients or pieces, but I do think that this is, I think it sets them off on a bit of a difficult path, while also understanding that health and these guys have a level of familiarity. They should be fine during the regular season. Even if they did this the whole regular season, they could totally win 50 games again. I think there are some dangers in going to this early when LeBron's going to be ramped down, right? Because as I say that about LeBron, that's when he's at his peak and when he's turned up. In terms of volume defender, who's your best volume defender in the starting lineup, right? When Ayton has been a productive rim protector or defensive 5, it's been in a really good defensive structure where he had Bridges and Johnson as the attack defenders.
They weren't exactly like funneling guys to him.
Exactly. And he was part of that, right?
Accidentally or on purpose. Yeah.
Right. And he wasn't bad at that at all. I don't want to downplay that he was legitimately good at that, but it was not as I'm going to save a bunch of bad defenders from getting to. Yeah. And even AD, when we put AD in those situations, that's very tough for him too, and he could do it, but asking him to do it 40 minutes, 35 minutes a game for 75 games a year, it's a tough ask. And so I think it sets the Lakers off on a difficult defensive course with the starters early on. But it's also, like I said, it's basketball and these are 70-30. Let's see what it looks like, right? It's the first game. This is the time to try stuff. It's a long season.
Your mic cut out. That was kind of weird. So yeah, I'm gonna take that a step further because I believe you can hear me, right, Pete? You can hear me. All right, cool. So I'm going to take that a step further while Pete works on his mic, and you're good. So I would add on just really quickly before we move on to like the how it can work and that aspect of it. I listened to your pod with Raj and with Darius and with Mike. I just think in terms of Twitter. So I'm like, his name isn't
Canyon.
But no, it was a fantastic episode. You can, obviously, if you guys are following this show, I would imagine you guys follow Pete's, but just in case you don't, change that, the Laker Film Room pod. But essentially the premise of the pod, and I don't want to give too much of it away, is that, Raj and Mike were making the case for Rui starting. You and Darius and I are all aligned on, we think that Marcus Smart should be starting. And one of the points that wasn't made was, because you guys talked about it, and I think the best case for Rui starting is he's the more talented player. And
they're starting their best 5 players, right? That's part of the argument for it, is those are the best 5 dudes on the team.
Yeah, and so from that perspective, it is kind of unassailable, in that regard. Like in a way, it's a talent versus fit type of debate, which is a science versus religion debate. It just is what it is when it comes to basketball. But one point that I don't think gets made often enough when it comes to the starting group is the downstream effects of playing certain guys in certain roles. And when you're starting Rui, and now you have to figure out a way to maintain decent spacing with Marcus Smart and Jared Vanderbilt and Jackson Hayes coming off of your bench, like that's really tough. And I wanted to, kind of when we get to that point, in this conversation, we'll talk about what it can possibly work or how it could possibly work. To me, the number one reason why I'm concerned about Rui starting doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the guys that are going to be on the court and some of their deficiencies. We know what those are. And I do think over the course of an 82 game season, you can play with enough smoke and mirrors that you can get through it and, like you said, win 50 games, whether you start Rui or Smart or not. But to me, we keep on hearing the rave reviews about Jared Vanderbilt. Well, that would indicate to me that they're trying to find a way to get him on the court. Okay. Well, we know that Smart, the reason that Rui would be starting in JJ's, according to his principles, would have a lot to do with spacing. Well, then, therefore, inherently, Smart is the lesser floor spacer. And then by the time those two guys are coming off of the court, one of Austin or Luka or LeBron are coming off of the court. Those three guys are all better shooters than all of the three guys that we're talking about here. And so unless you're basically bringing, Smart and Vando into the game and Jackson into the game, and you're just letting the dogs loose and just, wreaking havoc defensively, which I guess is an identity that a lot of bench teams tend to go to, it's just really difficult to have such a stark contrast from one group to another. What do you think about that notion?
No, I think that's the case. I do think that you can, if you have an offensive group, if you can sort of blend into the defensive group eventually, that's the best case scenario. But I generally don't like all one direction or the other. I think that both come with difficulties. And what you're speaking to is just look beyond the starting lineup, and there's going to be groups out there where it's like, oof, we're going to need Luka to be amazing. And I don't think we want that either, where, look, there's going to be some nights where it's, Luka can carry an offense by himself, and then all of you dudes play defense and we'll be fine. But I think that there's going to need to be some two-way play out of those spots. And so remember, this is how we started last season as well, where D'Lo started and we had that all offensive group. But then the end of first quarters, we really had a hard time scoring because LeBron went to the bench, Gabe and Max. And remember, Max started very slowly, but then ended up being the ideal starter. Right. Yep. The team that really hit its stride was with Max at the 2, because that's what Max does for a living, is he guards the ball. That's like the main job that he does, and then can hit spot up threes. That was exactly the type of player that we needed. And we went 18-6 in the games that he started. And so that's sort of the argument. Now, Smart isn't the shooter that Max is, but he brings other things to the table. Right. But anyway, I think that it's just a matter of balance. Basketball is such a great sport because you need to have so many different things represented, because all 5 players play both offense and defense in a way that no other sport it's quite the same. And so there's always, I'm a believer that you have to have certain jobs represented. That with the starters, if you don't have the guy who can guard the ball, that's a red flag there. But then with the bench groups, it's like you can't have too many guys that the other team's like, oh yeah, I'm fine with you shooting this semi-contested jumper and we'll be fine,
Yeah, I think of basketball in lineups, especially with basketball. You guys know this if you guys follow me on Twitter, but I love cooking. I got into cooking over the last few years. And when you cook, you're always thinking about, every, it's a salt, fat, acid, heat is essentially what you're always thinking about. And with a lineup, there are some dishes that you could just overwhelm somebody with heat. Right. You can bring the fire, and sometimes that's what people are into. Right. Like, I love, shrimp a la diabla, I love that shit. Like that's a good, fun meal from time to time. But 82 games of shrimp a la diabla
might not what you have for breakfast every day. Right. Yeah.
Right. And I think when I think about like this notion of starting Rui with all of these guys, I think of it as like a really, really, really rich meal. It's like a pot roast where, it's really good, but I only want to make it like once or twice a month, because otherwise you're just weighed down by it a lot. And it'd be nice to add a different flavor set or a different, like the one problem that I often have with like pot roasts is it's a lot of mush, so like where's the crunch going to come from? Can you add some crunch into this thing? That's why people often serve it in or with toast, because it just gives your mouth a different sensation. And that to me is where Marcus Smart would kind of fit in here, where you do have a lot of like, braised beef with Luka, and you have these super rich potatoes with LeBron, and you have these perfectly cooked vegetables with Austin and the gravy that kind of puts it all together with Ayton.
Sure.
But with Rui, it's like, all right, so what are you going to add? Another gravy?
Sure.
Like it just feels like it feels like compounding a strength to the point where you're no longer making it a strength.
Right. And only one guy can shoot the ball ultimately at the end of an action. And so that can be difficult. That said, Smart physically, this is a conversation that's a difference between on paper and reality, right? What you pointed out early on about how if there was a chance for Smart to be like, I'm going to be healthy, starter, needed to be healthy, and he's not. So maybe one of those ingredients isn't ripe yet. But Vando, right? Vando worked great when it was him and 4 dudes who could play offense.
Yeah.
The D'Lo, Austin, LeBron, and AD, and obviously you have a special defender on the back line of that too. That made that pick and roll defense, like Vando on the ball and providing back pressure, and he's funneling into Anthony Davis. That's nasty, right? Like, and that's why it's a 2-person job and important that both of those guys do their role. But that's when he was at his best, right? So how do you see Vando? Like, Vando's the guy that's getting rave reviews in terms of how he looks physically right now.
Well, so a point that I want to make, or I was going to make later in the pod, was how I think if Smart isn't starting, then you need to go out and trade for the guy who will be, who should be, right? Who does connect that starting group. And we know that the Lakers, they just like every other team, they like to wait 20, 25 games or so, see where the team is at and stuff. Over the course of these 20 to 25 games, I do think we do need to see Vando in the starting group. If Smart can't get healthy, just to, again, get that different look. That way, by the time you do make that decision, on what kind of a trade that you're looking to make, by the time you do make that trade, you will have seen every look that you can get. But yeah, I have always been of the mindset that Smart makes the most sense there, but he's already dinged up. He's been dinged up for basically the majority of the last couple of years. He plays a style that does age players quickly. So
and ding you up. Yep.
Yeah. So like that. And given his ask, right, is, hey, sometimes you're going to guard a point guard. Sometimes you're going to guard a big wing. Sometimes you're going to guard Anthony Edwards, who's like a mix of both, and that is a big ask, for somebody that the Lakers are really going to need in the postseason. So I think Vando does help solve that issue of having both him and Smart on the bench, or needing to come off of the bench at the same time. The other thing too, Pete, is that like the reason that you got a Smart and the reason that you employ a Vando is to bother the other team's best perimeter ball handler, right? Like and the idea is if you can stagger those two guys for 48 minutes, you can have somebody that's really annoying that player. So yeah, I'd be down with starting Vando at some point over the first 20-25 games of the season.
Sorry to sidetrack. I don't know if you saw the news. Luka out first 2 games of the preseason.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah,
I didn't see that. I wish I hadn't. That's tough. Because so what? All right, I guess we'll kind of flip the show for a second here. I was going to do this later in the show. I'm of the mindset, Pete, that like I don't care about winning any specific preseason game, but I also don't want to go over 6 or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's usually a harbinger. I was saying this on the LFR pod we recorded today, that even though, yes, these are preseason games and they don't count, the legendary consider this a warning game, where the Lakers, remember after they won the game, my guy Joey, we were feeling ourselves, and AD made his debut as a Laker, and they looked freaking great. That was kind of a way of announcing. I remember the Warriors in the 2015-16 preseason. We played them a couple of times, and I was like, oh my God, these guys have really taken a leap forward. And I'm a 49er fan, so a lot of my friends are Warrior fans. And I was like, I think you guys are going to the finals this year. That you can make some statements early on,
Yeah. Well, either way. Right. Remember?
Yes, both ways. Yes.
Remember the Dwightmare season, right? Like where it was like, I think they went 0-5 or 0-6 that preseason, and all of the games weren't particularly close, and those minutes when those starters were playing together weren't all that pretty, and it was like,
this is fine, right? right?
And then like, shortly into the season, Kobe, remember the last thing that he did with Mike Brown was shoot lasers out of his eyes at him, because of the Princeton offense that Brown wanted to run. And like I said, like the first couple of games of preseason are the first couple of games of preseason. And I know the Lakers keep on talking about how cautious and overly cautious they know that they are going to be, right? Getting an MRI on Maxey on what apparently was just kind of banging knees, right? Somebody got him with a knee. Get running that MRI, bringing LeBron along slowly, all that stuff. And it's like, look, preseason is a luxury until it isn't. Like training camp is a luxury until it isn't, because the Lakers don't have the benefit. Yes, they have a lighter schedule, but that means that they're going to have a heavier schedule down the road.
Oh, yeah.
And they need to rack up wins quickly when this season starts.
It's an important start. Yeah.
That was actually one of the reasons that I was told that starting Rui made sense internally to the Lakers, is because like this is something they know
that right now
they know that they can rack up wins that way.
I understand that argument. I think there's merit to that.
Yeah. Let's get back to what it could look like if Rui is starting, and how the Lakers, because it's not like one of the points that the question I asked Darius, right, in the Great Western Forum pod that we recorded a little while back, was like, how much does starting so-and-so matter, right? One way or the other. And the point of it was like, and I asked it specifically of Darius because he's Mr. Nuance, right? So it's like, and I thought he gave a good answer where it's like, it's easy to say it doesn't matter because, and I don't want to speak for Darius, but I believe I'm characterizing this correctly, but like, it's easy to say it doesn't matter because there are already 2 games and there is a lot of time to adjust and all this stuff. But it does matter in the sense that like, this is basically identifying your identity this season. And it does matter in that sense. And I think he's right on both fronts. That said, starting with Rui, I don't think it's a sky is falling type of decision. And it is the kind of thing that they can adjust from if they need to. And I do think there are ways that it can work. They won 50 games.
We've had this conversation, man. The offseason is over. This is the direction that they're going in. Let's accept the premise and talk about, okay, this is what it is. What's the best way to make it work?
Yeah. So what is the best way to make it work?
Well, again, I think it takes some defenses off of the table from the perspective of you don't really have somebody that can put pressure on a ball handler and then slide their feet and not get beat, right? And so the direction I think the Lakers are going to go in is the one that they went in last year, which was very heavy on peel-off switches, which is you're going to guard the ball until you get beat in one direction or another, right? So see, I'm guarding you and you drive left and you get past me. Whoever's on that side is going to peel off their guy and slide their feet over to you, and I'm going to go help them, right? I'm going to go close out on their guy. And there are different formations and traps that you can kind of form in the moment out of that when you get really good at it and get some steals and on-ball deflections. And that was part of the reason why even without AD, they were really good defense for that stretch in February where they were playing really good ball. Like, it was really, even more than anything, driven by their defense. And there is a certain level of, this is unusual. And I think Jackson was more key to that than we might give him credit for, because for all of his faults, he is pretty fast and agile, and you need your 5 in that type of style to be able to sort of move his feet a little bit and react. And this is one of my concerns with Ayton, is both he's a bit bigger. He moves his feet well for his size, but just how well could he peel off switch? And then to what degree can he like recover and slide his feet? You know, with some guys, I think that's going to be challenged in this type of style. So, and then, but like drop coverage, I think to be a good drop coverage team, which is the most conventional non-switching type of style, you have to be able to get over the top of the screen. And that's tough if you don't have the physical strength or on-ball ability, right? So Austin is our quickest defender in the starting lineup, but he's pretty good at drawing illegal screens going over the top. But like actually getting over the screen takes a level of strength that he doesn't have. And so you can't put the requisite amount of back pressure on the guard that's coming off of that. So yeah, I think that the Lakers can make it work defensively with the peel off switching, but it takes a lot of defenses off of the table that come playoff time, that's a problem.
Yeah. I would be shocked, Pete, if this was the playoff starting lineup. Like, I would be shocked if this is the final group. Then that was one of the points that Mike made basically in the pod, was like, and look, he made it in reference to the Lakers specifically, and how, often the Lakers start with one group and then finish with another one by the end of the season. That's for the vast majority of teams, honestly. One way or another, it's unless you see like a defending champion. Oftentimes that team usually runs back its starting group, and then it is the group that usually starts the, and those dynastic runs usually feature that kind of a thing. And I just don't think the Lakers are on a dynastic run. So this is going to be a moving target. I think another part of this that I think speaks to why I think there's a better chance of Rui working in this starting group more sustainably than with last year's starting group. Like, if you would have swapped out Jackson for Ayton with this group, I would be more nervous about it than I am now. One of the things that I think the Lakers are going to, one of the weaknesses from last year that I think they're going to turn into a strength this year is their rebounding.
Oh,
and
that would be so nice. That would be so nice.
So essentially, Ayton, a good volume rebounder over the course of his career. He's always been a very good volume rebounder. LeBron, one of the best rebounders at his position ever. Luka, fantastic rebounder at his position. Even Austin
very gets like good. 4.5 boards. That's very good for one. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Rui, like we might have our qualms about him, but if Rui is your worst rebounder in the group, like, the reason that the Lakers struggled to rebound is because he was
he was an important rebounder in some groups.
Yeah. And so I think and JJ Redick talked yesterday about, or maybe it was the day before, one of the first couple days of camp, he talked about the Lakers wanting to be a hit-ahead team, right? And this is, when I heard that, dude, I got so excited, because that, to me, like, I was a point guard once upon a time, and I used to love hit-ahead passes because it made my job so much easier. I used to love getting the ball up the court, getting it to a playmaker up the court, and then if you guys need me to set up the offense, I'll set up the offense, and to me, when you have as many great creators as the Lakers are going to have between Luka and Austin and LeBron, getting the ball up the court, giving one of your finishers an opportunity to do something in primary transition, and then also pulling back into secondary transition with a purpose, like, that's something that I'm really excited about. And if it's Rui getting out and running in transition, I actually think he's going to be a better transition player than Smart, right? If he's catching those hit-ahead passes, he's more of a threat down there in those spots. And then, if you back up or whatever, you get into your sets, And like, I've always thought that the Lakers' best path to being a championship contender is to be overwhelming offensively and then be as good as you can possibly be defensively. And I guess by starting your more talented offensive player, that leans into that identity.
Yeah. That's the good part of it, right? Is that I think on the defensive end, it ends up putting players like Austin in an over-ask type of position where, like, no, if he's your best point of attack defender in the starting lineup, that's bad. You're going to get cooked. That's a bad thing. But on the offensive end, what I think that leads is sort of there's so many combinations that you have, especially if there's going to be a lot of 2- and 3-man type of action, that there's so many combinations that you can find the weak points of the other team while also having a talented enough player to exploit that. And so that's what I think it has to be less like taking turns and more what's the different combos that we need to use with this group of 5 that beats this particular team in front of us. Where are they weak? Is this an Ayton night? Is it a Rui night? And then everybody being able to sort of facilitate each other's success. That said, there's only so many shots to go around. And one of the things when I heard him talk about we want to be a hit-ahead team is you got to get a stop in the first place to be a hit-ahead team. And so if you're taking the ball out of the basket, you're not going to do that nearly as often. And so, I like I said, I don't love the direction that they've gone in that respect, but I do think that there's potential on the offensive end, at least.
Yeah, it just, I mean, it really kind of comes down to, hey, stars, you're gonna have to defend too. If they're gonna start Rui, then the message is basically to Luka and LeBron and even in Austin as well. Like, you're gonna have to compete on offense if we're gonna make this work. And asking a 41-year-old LeBron to do
That's what I'm
that,
saying. I'm concerned about it.
Now I will also say though, on the offensive front, because one of the responses when I tweeted out that I was hearing that Rui is going to be the starter eventually, one of the responses, or maybe it was in like my mentions have been a disaster because it got aggregated, and so like one of the responses was like, Steph is going to light this group up, right? Not disagreeing.
Mm-hmm.
Also, who's he guarding?
Sure.
And it's like, in that, like, I guess to me, if the Lakers are going to make this work, and the reason I'm making that point is, if the Lakers are going to make this work, they have to be able to take better advantage and smarter advantage of the advantages that they create. Last year, they kept on banging their head up against getting the center out into space and trying to attack the center. This group, Pete, is fucking huge. This group, like, this is the kind of group that you should be able to just bludgeon teams to death with. And if they are going to be, one of the things that I think they really need to be a lot better at this year is identifying the advantage more quickly, and then getting into sets that get that advantage into motion too. Because what they kept on doing last year, Pete, was the offense would grind to a halt. They would pull Gobert out. I'm just talking about the Minnesota series. They would pull Gobert out, and then you had Jalen McDaniels, and you had Anthony Edwards, and you had Julius Randle, or whoever, like any of their other, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They were all just like staring at whoever it had the ball, and
Very
it was
easy
a
to guard
very
that.
Yeah, it's too easy to guard. And one of the ways that I think, if they're going to go down this path, one of the things that I think they really need to get a lot better at is adding flow into their offense in one way or another. Could you speak to like what you would do to get that going?
They got to get teams out of switching more often, which is how you can get into flow into more of your stuff, and you beat switches. Like, I think we were exactly what you said, isolating on the big up top. I think targeting guards and wings. And then this is a place that I have a lot of hope for Ayton on, is because he's both, if a team is switching, there's going to be a smaller player. If we're pulling that big out, there's going to be a smaller player and trying to box out a very good offensive rebounder in Ayton. He should be able to get some putbacks and advantage in that. He can also, and this is where the team needs to get a lot better, is when a team switches, the post player, the player that set the screen, they have inside position for a moment if they pivot a certain way and seal their guy. And they're also theoretically bigger than the guy that they're doing that against. That you can't really make that play with Jackson the same, or at least to the same degree of frequency, because he doesn't have the skill to capitalize, because it's usually like a one dribble and a layup or kick out or something. But Ayton's going to eat on that. Ayton's a very good short roll type of player. And so if you can get him on that other side of those switches, and so if they can get them defenses out of just switching against us all the time and really make them pay for that, then that'll lead. I think they've already got good flow stuff with their stacks and their double drags, and they run a lot of good stuff that just gets neutralized by switching.
Essentially a version of the point that I was making there, or the point that I was making there, was like, be smarter. Like, when teams switch, you punish them to the point where they stop switching, right? It's like shooting a team out of a zone, or taking such advantage of a team with, against their man advantage, that you make them go zone. And to me, one of the things that, especially rewatching some of those games from that series, was just like, guys, I remember, have you ever seen the movie Chef?
Is that Jon Favreau?
Yeah.
Movie?
Yeah.
Long time ago. Yeah.
Remember like right at the beginning of the movie, the critic is sitting down in his restaurant. So basically in this movie, they Jon Favreau at one point was this really young, exciting, upcoming chef, and then he winds up getting hired as like the chef at this really hoity-toity restaurant, and the restaurant owner there had a very specific idea for like what kind of menu he wanted and all this stuff. And this critic, who at one point really loved this guy's cooking, sits down and is going to review Jon Favreau's character's cooking again at this hoity-toity restaurant. And he sits down and it's like, it's the same fucking menu. And he gives him his first bad review. And then Favreau, like, I think reached out to him on Twitter and was like, come on back to the restaurant. I'm going to cook my ass off, and you're going to see how much, this food is good or whatever. And then the guy comes back to his restaurant. Favreau serves him, because of the owner, serves him the same food, and the critic, as he's eating the same exact menu, is like, are you shitting with me? Somebody's fucking with me. Right. And I felt like that's what the Wolves were doing the whole series, where they like the Lakers.
I was wondering where the hell this was going. Yeah.
but like, I feel like the Wolves were just like, again, at the same play, we're going again. You just did. Okay. All right. Come on. Gobert's like, all right, bring it on, Luka. I have these 4 crazy rabid animals behind me that like go. All right, here we go. Step back 3, huh? All right. and it's just like, this year the Lakers have to be so much better, and this group specifically has to be so much better at taking advantage of the advantages that they create, and faster at getting to those advantages. All right, let's I want to really quickly, before we preview the preseason in more depth, I want to talk about the offseason, because one of the points that we made coming off of the offseason was like, well, they checked the box when it comes to the center position, and they checked the box when it comes to the point of attack defender, a starter who kind of fits better with Austin, with Luka, with LeBron, and with their new starting center. Now it doesn't appear that is going to be the case, at least at the beginning of the season. Does that make you rethink how successful the offseason was?
No, I think they're two different things. I think that there's a difference between having that but choosing to go another direction. As we said earlier, I think you could argue they're starting their 5 best players, or they're looking to do that, and I'm never going to argue too hard against that. But in terms of the Lakers still needed to acquire that type of player. I still think they need another type of player at the very least, and for Vando to stay healthy, for them to have just like a league conventional normal number of point of attack defenders. But if none of them are in the starting lineup, I think that's a current in the moment coaching thing. I see how you can tie it to the offseason, but I don't think they could have gotten a better defender at the 2 spot than Marcus Smart without trading any assets, right? I think he's the best of that bunch. Now, you could argue they should trade some assets for it. And well, what does that mean, right? You'd have to give me certain trades for me to say like, yes, I would want us to do that, or no, I wouldn't want us to do that. But for what we gave up, I don't view it as different. Do you view it as a different, like as a demerit for the offseason?
I don't know that I would go so far as a demerit. I think I would demerit myself, right? To a certain extent, like my own analysis of the offseason and my analysis of Marcus Smart. If this is how the Lakers view Marcus Smart at this point of his career, then I probably shouldn't have thought the way that I did about him, kind of a thing. Now, that said, it just kind of gets back to how Rob Pelinka views the NBA calendar year, and how he views the market and its, fluctuation over that calendar year. Rob does not like paying off-season prices for rotation players. He does not. And he would much rather kind of trudge through the mud of the first 40 or so games with a roster that he can hope for the best with, but knows needs, certain tweaks, and then, once those prices drop on players, that's when he'll swoop in. And this offseason, the guy that I reported on, and then eventually, the other beat reporters reported on, we'll just use him as an example, was Andrew Wiggins. And the price that the Heat were talking about, at least in some versions of those talks, was Rui and a starter and Dalton. And I get not paying that price if that was indeed the price. I wouldn't pay that price for 1 year of Andrew Wiggins and then, negotiations right away after that 1 year. And then you look around like at the kind of player. So like, I guess one thing that I probably should have done, and I wish the Lakers, I would like to know what the Lakers did to this extent, is like, all right, Marcus Smart is your, what are we saying? Like second best addition, I would say, to the roster, like the one that they were the most excited about, I would say.
Yeah, they like Laravia. It might be closer than we might think.
But
yeah.
We got to talk about him because I'm hearing I'm trying to temper my expectations.
That's what I'm saying.
But
they really
they're like, there's a lot of rave reviews coming out about Laravia. But the but with like, I guess to me it's like, all right, if Smart was never going to be the starter, then I would have liked to seen the Lakers use assets to go out and get the version of Marcus Smart that starts. And I don't know if that player was available. I don't know what that player would cost. Because Smart isn't a 3-and-D wing. 3-and-D wings are going to cost a first-round pick, period, and then some. Those negotiations start at a first-round pick. But like a 3-and-D shooting guard or a 3-and-D point guard, essentially, is I think what the Lakers had in mind when they landed Smart. Those guys tend to be a little bit cheaper. I would have liked to seen if the Lakers what the marketplace looked like for players in that range. But I do think though that like, if we get 30 or so games into the season and it's clear that Marcus can't start, they do have to go out and get,
if they want to do anything this season. I think that's when we'll find out the truth of their desire to really want to try to win a championship this year.
All right, let's talk about tonight's game. Which we made it, dude.
We did. Long ass offseason. Thank God.
I wish they would have played last night so you and I could talk about the game right now, but instead we'll have to wait for Sunday to have like an immediate review of a game on this feed at least. What are you looking for from this game specifically before we talk about the preseason slate in a more macro sense?
So no Luka, no LeBron. I think that takes a lot of the what are they going to run type of stuff that off of the table. Redick brought up shorter bursts in terms of the rotations he expects guys to play. That's a good way of describing it, meaning that I want to see guys go hard, right, for this part of the season. I want to see like a really good competitive effort, but just don't play them super long shifts, right? Like these guys but I think that building up, and that's what Redick's trying to do with the emphasis on conditioning and being in shape and all that, is build up their capacity, their habits. We're used to playing this certain way that if they don't build that up, there was a lot of last year's team that was, you guys don't like to run that much. That's going to be the scouting report for this team. Look at this. If you look at the starting lineup, to bring it back to what we were talking about, if you're the other team, almost every night you're going to be like, run these dudes. Like get out in transition. And so teams are going to challenge us in that respect. And so to whatever degree they're capable, they're certainly going to get pushed in that way. So do guys look like they're in good shape, or do they look like they're gassed right now? Just kind of how do they look physically? With Luka and LeBron being out, it takes away a lot of the I do have takeaways, but it takes away, some of the what I would look for.
Yeah, the conditioning is something that it's really easy to talk about. Everybody says they're in the best shape of their lives coming into camp. That is, it's really Anthony Davis is like the rare guy who came into camp and he was like, yeah, I'm a little fat right now. I usually lose weight over the course of the season.
Like I'm fat every year. Why are you?
It's like that doesn't help, AD. Might be why you deal with injuries. But anyway, Yeah, I would say though that like the conditioning and the discipline to me, like one of the things that has driven me crazy over the last few years, and this isn't a JJ problem, it was a Darvin problem too, as well, is the overhelping, from everybody 1 through 15 on the roster, understanding assignments and staying disciplined within the concepts of the team. The one of the things again that we, to bring it back up, JJ Redick said that like not only do they want to get out and run, but they also want to run with a purpose and run in an organized fashion. All right, what is that going to look like? I want to see what kind of concepts they're running as a secondary transition offense. And then how quickly, because he was talking about how like the best offenses in terms of points per possession in the league, when in the shot clock they're getting into their sets. All right, is that you don't need LeBron and Luka to do that. You just got to get your asses up the court and stuff like that. And then, defensively, I still am a little concerned about some of the physicality with this team. And it's going to require some guys who you don't normally think of as physical presence type players to be more physical than we would think of them to be. And I want to see like if the Lakers bring like which guys bring that to the table, right? We know Marcus Smart's going to mix it up. We know Jared Vanderbilt's going to mix it up. We know, Jackson is going to commit like one bad flagrant foul like a week or whatever. But like everybody basically, like I one team that I really liked watching play last year was the Detroit Pistons.
Oh hell yeah, they were my team, Eastern Conference team, very early on.
Yeah, and I just love that. Like they're like, yeah, a lot of our guys we're gonna flirt with foul trouble every single night, and we're probably gonna pick up some texts, and we're gonna pick up some flagrants, and we're gonna do all these things. But you're gonna freaking hate playing us, And I'm not expecting the Lakers to be the Detroit Pistons, like that kind of physical, but I do think the Lakers have picked up a bit of a reputation around the league over the last few years as a kind of a soft team. And I think we need to like one of the, when JJ talks about championship conditioning being a mental and physical thing, I think that's part of what he's talking about. So I want to see like to what extent the Lakers are willing to get out there and get dirty a little bit.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I look to the third unit, frankly, as for a lot of this, like in this game early on, right? I think there's a certain amount of running and all of that, but I am excited about sort of the, these first couple of games, we're going to see a lot of those guys. So do you have guys on kind of toward the end of your roster that you're excited about? I got to let Miha out. Give me 1 sec.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and talk. So the guy all right, I've said this already to you guys, but the guy that I keep on hearing about as somebody that we need to keep an eye on is that is not supposed to be that way. Here we go. Sorry. I hit the wrong button. We're both on fire today.
Yeah, we're great. Yeah.
But I told you, I warned Pete before we went live. I have medicine brain because of the thing that Miles gave me.
And my house is always crazy, man. I've always got, yeah. I'm
so
like,
we
hold it down for a lot of people. Yeah.
But the guy I was going to say that I'm really excited for is Jake LaRavia. And I know he's not really an end of the roster guy or whatever, but people have been ranting and raving about him basically since he got there, meaning like to the facility, playing in pickup games, playing in more organized team, type of things. And like people are saying, and even he talked after practice the other day about how he's, going to guard 1 through 4 and stuff. And that's what the team is kind of telling him to prep for. You don't do that with anybody. Like telling somebody, hey man, you're like from on any given night, you're going to be guarding anyone from here to here. That's not normally the guy.
I'm excited about him on that. I'm worried that's an over ask, but we will see. You are right. Everybody's ranting or raving about him.
Yeah. This is a tough spot for him because he's the kind of guy who like needs stuff created for him on offense, so I don't know if this is the game for him. I'm not going out there and I'm not expecting him to look like an all-star tonight, but he's the guy that I'm really kind of, he would change if what people are telling me is true and translates. he kind of changes the dynamic of like a lot of the dynamics of this rotation, and we might have to rechart some of this stuff. Who do you have your eye on?
Well, just to your point on that front, if he hits, he could help alleviate some of that. We have a bunch of defenders coming off of the bench and nobody can score.
Yeah.
He's somebody that can provide a counter gravity to that I think is important. I've heard Dalton's kind of made his way out of the upside down and has been playing really good basketball lately, getting run in. Koloko is a guy I'm very high on.
Really quick on the Dalton thing. What did you make the other day of him not being listed by
I expected
JJ?
it. I mean, the Larabia signing, that's if you're Dalton Connect and they sign Jake Larabia, you go, that guy looks a lot like me, you know?
Yeah.
So the combination of the two things, right? But Dalton's apparently been playing good ball. I think this is a type of game that he could play well in. In terms of the end of the Bronny, let's see how that summer league progression translates to the preseason. And then just some of the E10 guys. Does Marcialonis play? Nick Smith Jr., right? We've got several guys in that E10 class. I'm looking forward to that fourth quarter, which is usually their domain.
And to your point, I want to come back to Bronny. I have a take that I'm gonna run by you on Bronny. So to your point about the end, like the end of the roster guys, one of the stark differences between Darvin's teams and JJ's teams was the level of give a bleep from those end of roster guys when they got opportunities with JJ. And if that continues again, that indicates to me that is a culture setter thing. So that's definitely a good thing to bring up. All right, Bronny take, and then we'll get you out of here.
All right.
So I saw him golf over the summer. Did you see that? Did you see?
Very briefly. LeBron versus golf this summer was one of my favorite storylines I haven't talked about.
It's my favorite. All right. Well, now I have to play the clip.
Very charming.
It's just like, this is the most golf clip ever.
Okay.
That's a motherfucking shot.
What I love about that, even though I know these are the things that I report about. One, it wound up being a good shot. And the second voice in that video was actually J.R. Smith, who's been helping him on his golf game.
Okay.
But like the thing I love about that clip so much is that, and why I say it's so perfectly golf is because when he goes, whoosh, and then it could either be a great shot or a terrible shot. That's just golf.
Versatile word.
Yeah. But no, so what I was going to say about Bronny though, because his golf swing is really clean.
That's what Austin says. Yeah.
Really, really good. Okay. And like Austin joked that he would take Bronny against LeBron by quite a bit. He would put his whole house on it. Which for Austin, because he's a frugal guy, is saying a lot.
Okay.
But so my take on Bronny is that I don't think you can be good at golf and have that nice a golf swing without having solid hand-eye coordination, which to me lends itself to shooting. I think he can be a pretty good shooter, at least if that's his golf swing. And two, you really have to care. Like there's a level of commitment that you have to golf because it's all repetition. It is just, that's why the best shooters are the best golf players, because you just sit there and you're willing to lock yourself in a gym and just shoot and shoot and shoot. And with golf, it's the same thing. Just shoot and shoot. And my take is that, like, having seen Bronny golf, I really think, his ceiling raised quite a bit to me. It's a weird take. I know it's
fine. I wish
take.
I've played golf like 3 times in my life,
really?
And twice were with right-handed clubs when I'm a left-handed person. So I played golf once in my life. So I wish I had something wise to add to it, but I did enjoy like watching. It's also in LeBron versus golf this summer. It's also such an individual sport that with all the stuff going on with the team, it's like one place. It's like, it's just me. It's just me in this stupid sport that pisses me off that I can't stop playing,
LeBron's swing is such a perfectly like strongman swing. Like I guarantee you, he could probably hit the ball a mile, but he could probably hit the ball so much further if he just like Like if you watch him, the club never really gets like above here.
Yeah, he's not the
right?
most flexible dude up top. No.
Yeah, but like he's still able to generate so much
Sure, that's a big
club head speed because
Yeah.
he's a giant person and he's crazy strong.
Mhm.
But it was just like I was like, oh, I know that swing. I know that swing. And I was like, and then I saw somebody else be like, Bronny gets out onto the links too. And I was like, oh, let's see what this looks like. I was like, oh, okay. So I'm telling you, Pete, my belief in Bronny went up a couple notches because, golf, it's my favorite sport. It really is. I grew up playing basketball, baseball, soccer, volleyball, all this stuff.
I
But
didn't
to
know
me,
this.
golf is my favorite sport because it is so mental. And there's a line from The Legend of Bagger Vance, and he basically says, like, golf is the only sport where you can call a penalty on yourself, and you have to hold yourself accountable. And if you don't, and you try to cut any corners or whatever, eventually the golf gods, they are mean AF. And so I just love golf. I've been golfing since I was like 5. No, maybe a little earlier, like 3 or 4. It's just, yeah, here we are.
All right.
Pete, this has been a blast, man. As it always is.
Got a game tonight.
Got a game tonight. We got another game Sunday night. So I'll be recording after the game Sunday night. Pete, anything that you want to plug before we get you out of here?
No, man, just join me on playback if you'd like. Going to be doing that. They improved their ability to sync up with the game, the audio with the game. So head over to playback, catch me on there, watch the game with me, and yeah, I'll catch you next time we do this.
All right, everybody. So we do have a star comment. Pete, you can peace out if you want to peace out. I'm going to answer.
I got to take care of my dad. Yeah, he needs.
Yeah, go for it.
All right.
So all right,
guys,
there goes Pete. Bye, Pete. And then let's go ahead and jump into the starred comment with this one. All right. So the starred comment that we got from Greenlight Transport: we need to trade Reeves so that LA can win a championship. I don't know if you guys saw it there, but my literally like slunk forward getting that comment. I've just gotten this comment so much over the course of the summer, and I just vehemently disagree. So you guys heard it there where Jake LaRavia and Pete and I were talking about this. Jake LaRavia, talked about how the coaching staff is telling him to get ready to guard 1 through 4 and stuff like that. And Pete immediately kind of jumped backward a little bit just to say, hey, that might be a bit of an overask. And what I think we as fans need to do is not hold a player, like that player's role, against that player. And another player, that fell into this category was Taurean Prince, where I think Taurean Prince is a very solid NBA player, has been for his entire career. And the Lakers, quite frankly, missed him last year. But the Taurean Prince that we think about is the Taurean Prince that Darvin Ham saw as the Lakers' Chris Middleton. And that's not even me like making a joke. I reported that at the time. And so like when it came time for the offseason, and I was like, yeah, I think, it would be nice if like this roster makes a lot of sense to bring Taurean Prince back too. And a lot of fans were like, oh, get out of here, all this stuff. And I think that had a lot more to do with Taurean Prince's role on those teams and a lot less to do with Taurean Prince, the NBA player. And I think when I hear, trade Austin in order to give yourself a chance at winning a championship, well, I think that has a lot more to do with the fact that, like, even heading into this year, the Lakers are asking Austin to be a point of attack defender. And that's not a role that Austin is going to flourish in. He's just not. And that doesn't make Austin any less of a player, any worse of a player. It just means that the Lakers, once again, are misdiagnosing the type of role that Austin needs to be in. And yeah, I think, I get the frustrations there. And obviously, when you hear about some of the names over the years that the Lakers haven't been interested in putting Austin on the table for, it does make you say, like, all right, well, he better be this and that and the other. Well, he's not going to be this and that and the other so long as he isn't put into a role that is commensurate with the skill set that he actually brings to the table. So, yeah, I don't, sorry, Greenlight Transport. I don't agree with your comment. I appreciate it nonetheless, but yeah, I think it would be nice. And this is part of the reason that I'm kind of bummed that Marcus Smart isn't going to be starting, is because I was excited about Austin right at the onset of a season being in a role that makes more sense for him. And that isn't really possible if the Lakers start Rui again. So anywho, that is going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lounge channel. This episode of The Hook. Pete already took off. Thanks to Pete for hopping on. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. The numbers, heading into the season are great. I cannot wait to get to the season. I cannot wait to get to tonight's game. It is going to be a really good one. And now, obviously, it being a Friday night, I don't normally pop back on here on Friday nights. But on Sunday after the game, I will be right here in the lounge to break it down for you. So until then, and until the next time you guys hear from me, I am Anthony Irwin saying, have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's, and I will talk to you Sunday. Have a great weekend, everybody.